Can we talk for a second about Martin Odegaard? Because as I film this video, Arsenal are 1-0 up in the Premier League against Aston Villa away from home, with him being at the very centre of so much of what is good about that team and so many reasons why Arteta is being praised in the Premier League. Pressing, attacking. Two of the reasons that this Arsenal side stand out above others and are currently in that fourth spot. But it would be kind of easy at this point to say, well, we always knew that Martin Odegaard was going to reach the very top, because when he went from Stromsgodset, I think that's the correct way of saying it, to Real Madrid, this guy was billed as the next Lionel Messi. Imagine a European that had that level of balance, the centre of gravity that allowed him to drift past people, the mindset of someone who hadn't necessarily already been corrupted by one of the big European academies, and the kind of person that you think, ooh, you come from a strange place and therefore maybe you could appear and do some strange things. Norway's not that strange, by the way, but it's strange in terms of Europe in that there's a great lifestyle there. I'm joking. Anyway, the point is that when he first arrived at Real Madrid, a lot of people, and especially Real Madrid themselves, had set him up as this player. The guy who could come in and be the young wonder kid for Real Madrid. Maybe they needed it at the time. Maybe the marketing did build up a lot of hype for this guy. And I'm going to be honest, it felt a little unfair, but I was very excited by it. As a Liverpool fan who just missed out on that guy, you think, God, what have we missed? And what if this guy is the next big thing that we could have got for however many million? It's weird to think back now that he was built up in that way, considering how quickly Real Madrid changed their tone and so many people in the press were briefed against him. There were loads of stories about him being the guy whose attitude had changed since he'd gone into training. He'd been around all these prima donnas and become one himself. I didn't always know whether I believed it, but when you hear that kind of thing, you're always disappointed because you don't want a young, audacious talent like that to be ruined so early. And maybe being around some of these big players had sort of spoiled him ever so slightly. So when he ultimately went to Real Madrid, you thought, this guy's scored for Norway and appeared for Norway at the youngest age ever recorded for them. And he looks like the exciting package. He could be good in terms of international football and good in terms of domestic football. Sometimes there are people from Norway who only really seem to impress one or the other, and they become a bit of a cult hero. And for a little while, when he went down that route of the loans at Heerenveen, Sociedad and Vitesse, you thought to yourself, is that your route? Is this really where this career goes? The guy was built up in so many different articles, so many profiles done on this young player. Because let's face it, a lot of people in Europe, well, they like the look of the kid. So when he arrives at Arsenal, I'll admit to being one of those guys that was sceptical. I thought to myself, you've not done well elsewhere, and Arsenal at the time felt like the kind of club where there was an element of desperation in what they were buying. Well, we're going to have to go to a kind of bargain basement where there is some sort of quality, but we're not quite sure what we're getting here. But I knew that there was something good in there, and I wanted it to be good. So when it is good, I watch it, and it's so satisfying. This guy represents, career-wise, what Mikel Arteta is trying to shape now. Getting away from the bad habits, getting away from the Galactico idea and becoming part of a team, becoming part of the tree. As I said in that video where we speak about what is up at the training ground, Arsene Wenger's face on the wall. There's a bit of a trend here going on at Arsenal now. And you start to realise that Arteta is not just about these tactics. He was so key and was so praised by Pep because of his ability to do things like this. To put an arm around a player, to talk to them, to train them in the right way, to shape them into something that meant that they were beneficial for the whole side and not just themselves. And there was always this worry that he would be beneficial just for himself. So now look at him. Not only is he pressing, and not only is he so important to the press, that genuinely, he's one of the people that initiates it, and I think he's one of the ones that leads it as far as Arteta seems to be concerned. But then you look at his passing. So he loves being on the inside right for quite a while, but now he's started to drift just a little bit more. And I'll be honest, the criticism or the observation about him is he's quite heavily left-footed. And so it does make his play a a little predictable, but boy, is that left foot good. When he can get into the right channel, and when there are players ahead of him, it's those incisive passes that cut between the lines that make all the difference for Arsenal. And you can see that kind of vision, not only to go through straight on goal, because a lot of people forget this, but the pass before the pass, or the pass before the pass before the pass, which unlocks an entire defence and opens up a whole side. A lot of people are benefiting from that. Not nearly Bukayo Saka, who scored again today, and is another representation of what Mikel Arteta is trying to achieve at this club. Young guys in their late teens, early 20s, who are just coming into that period where they can be shaped. They aren't the guys who won't listen and have to leave. They are the young leaves on the tree that make all the difference. They're the green shoots that people go, that's magnificent. And I get it. Like, there are other guys where you think the influence wasn't very good. Aubameyang. Is that still the case? I don't know. He's gone to Barcelona. He's looked pretty good. But if anything, it strengthens Arteta's hand that Aubameyang has left. The team have continued to score. And on top of that, by the way, he's got such a position now that he can basically say, well, we got rid of a great player and we've moved on. Odegaard is the hope for this team. Bukayo Saka is the hope for this team. That's a huge statement to make in any dressing room, not nearly to an opposition and not nearly to a board who were probably thinking about the amount of money they were spending on the guy. So Odegaard is part of that, and Odegaard is so key to that. Because with his ability to unlock the rest of the defence and put these passes into feet for all of these players, you don't need someone who always has to do something individually or seems to be able to cook some magic up out of nowhere. You have a left-footed magician, and he is, again, I'll repeat this, very left-footed. If he could use a bit more of that right, and if he's engaged to use a bit more of that right, there is a whole other area that he can unlock. And it's not like he doesn't have a right foot, by the way, because earlier on in this game, you see how quickly he can move it and shift the ball. He unlocked and moved beyond the lines with a very quick, smart pass around the corner in the centre of midfield. This guy isn't just a winger who operates in the very much the tight space and the half space out there. He operates in the hardest part to operate in, which is the very centre of the field. You don't know where any of that threat's going to come from. And so here he is, turning corners, making passes. And by the way, the press is about defence, but it's also about attack. So he doesn't get his credit for the defence, which is also something that Arsenal don't seem to get right now. In the pre-match today, you saw Gabby Agbonlahor, rightly so, analysing where the weaknesses were for Arsenal. And of course, he's an Aston Villa fan. Of course, he's an Aston Villa pundit. He's going to have to do that. But I don't feel this Arsenal team are getting the credit that they deserve for so much of the good stuff that they're doing. And now, if you look at that gap between them and Manchester United, what they represent and what Manchester United represent, at least for this season, are the exact reasons why one is slightly behind and one is getting slightly ahead. Maybe I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. But Arsenal needed some results in these games because these felt like they're games in hand. And I get we all play the same amount of games, so a game in hand to some people is irrelevant. These felt like the games in hand. And you want to put that cushion between you and Manchester United. So is 4 points enough? That's quite a lot in a top four race, by the way, especially when you have another game in hand. It's pretty ridiculous at this point to think, though, by the way, how young some of the players are in this side and how promising that is for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. I'll finish on this thought, but there's a whole other video coming about this. Watching Arsenal play today, they won 1-0, and let's be honest, they didn't really look that nervous at any point, whereas they did... Actually, no, they didn't look that nervous against Liverpool. They just got top two'd in the Premier League. It wasn't they looked terrible. They actually just didn't have that level up at the time. But there was evidence that they're moving towards that. And the same when you beat Villa like this. It's a difficult Steven Gerrard team to play. They've got the likes of Coutinho, Ings, Watkins in there. And then that centre midfield is bitey, it's unpleasant. It's an environment where you'd have expected this Arsenal team to crumble before, to give some points away. So, with the likes of Odegaard turning corners, unlocking defences, I can only say congratulations to Arsenal. I think this is a very promising time. Here's their idea for the other video. Mapping out the next few years for Arsenal, whilst also mapping out the next few years of transition for City, Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Spurs, all these other sides who might still have to put down some shoots that we're seeing already sprouting at Arsenal. Let me know your thoughts on Martin Odegaard yourself. Who was your man of the match today? And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another great video. I said it. See you there tomorrow. Bye.